for your willingness to come in on this beautiful Seattle day. I would just like to ask you to your name, where you're from, your program, what year you are in your program, and we'll use that as a start. Thanks.
Hello? Is it working? This is the button one. This one does not.
Do you want to try?
Sure. We'll switch. Hi, everyone. There we go. That's working. I'm Sarah. I am a second-year MPH student in the epidemiology department. I'm doing the general track, and I'm also doing a global health, maternal and child health certificate.
Hi everyone, my name is Norma. I'm in the nutritional sciences track, second year MPH student. Very excited to be here. I'm also an international student from Mexico. So welcome everyone.
Hi everybody, my name is Yaniv. I'm just entering my second year MPH program. I'm in the health systems and population health department in the health systems and policy concentration. I'm from Seattle originally, so if you have questions about Seattle, hopefully I can help answer them.
Hi, my name is Marlena. I'm also from Seattle originally, so please ask us questions about Seattle. And I am a second year biostatistics PhD student.
Hey everyone, my name is Ichin. I'm a 5th year biostats PhD. I've been here for 4 years, so I really like outdoors and hiking too. So feel free to ask me any questions about hiking near Seattle or in the Pacific Northeast. Northwest. What else is new? I also taught a bunch of biostats service classes, so if you have any questions about the biostats classes you might need to take as part of your requirement of your program, I'm happy to answer those questions as well.
Yeah, and my name is Tony Toe. I was born and raised in Seattle, Washington. I'm a second year Masters in Health Administration student.
Thank you all. Let's see, so it's up to you. If you don't feel like you want to project, that's fine. Just sort of make sure that you let me know that I should come over to repeat the question. And you can start at any time.
Hi, thanks for coming. I guess my first question is, from your experience, how do departments intermingle with like networking and just getting to know each other outside of classes?
Did you all get that?
Yeah, so the question was kind of about how do the different departments mingle and interact outside of classes. I think every department kind of has their own thing to a certain degree. I know with the new MPH program, the new core curriculum that they kind of tested out last year and you all will be a part of, there is a lot more intermingling through that. I mean, you're doing projects with people from the other departments, and I think that's the primary way that you see kind of crossover between departments.
At our School of Public Health also does a lot of events. We didn't have a lot to go to a lot of them because everything was online, but I'm pretty sure there will be more events in person where the whole School of Public Health is invited.
I don't know if, I'm Xylee. I'm going to be entering the public health genetics program. I've been out of school for 6 going on 7 years. Do you have, I don't know if any of you kind of had a gap between undergraduate and graduate. Like, what are your tips for, I guess, going back to school and succeeding in grad school?
Yes, so I graduated from the University of Washington back in 2016, and so there was a 4-year gap. So I guess one of the biggest things I kind of, prepared myself was to really be prioritizing my time and just using a scheduler. So as cliche as it sounds, always writing things down, whether that's online or if you're like writing it down like through a calendar, is super effective and helpful. Besides that, just maybe giving time for yourself, because I know for maybe some of you, you've worked for a couple of years and you kind of like were used to the 9 to 5 grind. But with grad school, I think it's always continuous, so giving yourself time just to like breathe and take care of your mental health is super important. So yeah.
I think I would add on to that. I took a bit of time to work as well, and I think that it's actually kind of a benefit to yourself to have had that experience of knowing what it's like to work 40 hours during a week, or however much you worked, and be able to say, okay, I'm going to treat graduate school a bit like a job, and actually make sure that you can try and save evenings and weekends and not be working all the time. Because I don't know about you all, but in undergrad, I know I thought I kind of needed to study all the time. And so getting into good habits with graduate school and making time to prioritize and make sure you do other things besides graduate school is really important. Yeah, I would also echo both of those things that have been said, but my final tip would be to not overload yourself fall quarter, because with these orientations and everything, you're hearing about a lot of amazing opportunities, and it is good to take advantage of them, but also giving yourself some time to kind of get in the rhythm of school again is really helpful. So especially those first few weeks, just be patient with yourself and give yourself that space.
I have a question here, and then I'll sort of look a little bit further into the room.
I suppose I had a time management question as well, just in terms of those of you that have worked. I'm looking at being a TA during my time here as well as in full-time school, and I'm not really sure what the workload's going to look like or how you guys have managed, if you guys have lives outside of that, if you've done that. So.
Yeah, I can start with that. I have TA'd or done research through the first 3 quarters that I was here. It was for the first 2 quarters, it was 20 hours a week, and I was taking around 14 credits, which is a medium-ish full-time student amount, and that was very doable, I thought. In the 3rd quarter, I started working 30 hours a week, 2 jobs, and I took 18 credits, and I would not recommend that. It was not a very fun quarter for me.
Yeah, just to add on that, I think TA jobs or research jobs, they often come in mostly 2 capacities, either 20 hours per week, which would be 50% of full-time effort, or 10 hours per week, which would be 25%. I would say that 10-hour jobs are usually more durable, especially if it's a teaching job, because oftentimes the class would have a 50% TA who covers most of the job, and the 25% is really an add-on. But I would say that it often depends on the specific classes you are TAing, so definitely communicate with the instructor. I think having a very clear guideline or setting up a meeting before the quarter starts to talk about the expectation, what are your job duties and everything would be very helpful. Also, I think another thing, regardless of the teaching job or research job, that's very important is also to document your hours. Oftentimes the instructor or the supervisor might not know how much time you're actually spending on this job, so having an idea after a few weeks whether you're working overtime or undertime, sort of communicate and provide feedback for the instructor or supervisor could be very beneficial as well.
Thank you. Let's see, I want to give some space and time to folks a little further back if you have questions. Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask, if you're a health sciences major, organic chemistry is the basic part of class you go into, are there any classes in the core that would be comparable to that, separating more time for, or more years specifically? Or what are the hardest classes that you follow?
If I were to sort of restate your question, you're talking about folks who are coming from a STEM background?
I'm asking comparatively, what is the hardest class or the harder classes in core that we need to be more mindful of time-wise?
What should we be scared of?
PHI 512 is the one. That's the more analytical one. There's a lot more kind of problem sets you have to do for that class. The rest are a lot more kind of theoretical and applied, or I don't know if applied's the right word, but PHI 512 definitely had the most work, at least last year.
Yeah, I want to echo that, although I do want to say that it also does depend a lot on your background. We had some, I think you maybe, I don't know, we had some classmates that were PHI 512 was a breeze to them because they saw all of that in undergrad. So it does depend a little bit on your background. But I would say PHI 512 would be my top as well.
And I would also add that, I guess, like content-wise, I don't know that there's nothing to be scared of. It's all really good. But I would say be prepared to do a lot of group work. I think a lot of us we're not prepared for that, and I'm seeing some nodding heads. So it's a really good experience. It is a great way to interact with people from outside of your department and get to know more folks in public health. But it also does require a little bit more time outside of class because you have to find time where everyone can get together in person or over Zoom. So just be prepared for that as well.
Yeah, just to echo that, it really depends how much time. So how much time you put into it is how much you get out of it. And so with teamwork, a lot of group work stuff, it really just depends on your prioritization of time. But most times I feel like the courses are not too heavy. It's more about the effort.
Do you have any tips for being able to pick up an RA or TA position?
Can you repeat the question?
Do you have any tips on how to pick up a research assistant or a TA position?
I applied to probably 30 or 40 different jobs over the last year and got 3, which is all I needed in the long run, but just get used to applying to a lot and not hearing back from a lot of them, and you'll find something.
There was a question.
My question is kind of a little less specific and more what is something that you wish you knew or you wish somebody would have told you before you started your program and what you kind of learned that you along my first year that's pretty valuable.
Did everyone catch that question? That's a great question. Okay. I'm Dave Olden.
Yeah, I can start. I think it also depends on the person. I think for me, it was getting used to how everything here in the United States, for international students works, and how to find that middle ground between being sort of sharing my culture, but also keeping not going further than I should go, which was a little bit hard, but I think you start getting used to it, and then it becomes easier. Other than that, I would just say that there was a lot of group work.
At least for me, one of the biggest things that I kind of had to adjust to is that I felt like in undergrad, the emphasis was kind of on specific courses, and your study strategy really has to change for graduate school because it's so much about synthesis and carrying things over from multiple courses that you're taking and really being able to synthesize the material so you develop a deeper understanding. So and for me, that's actually a different set of skills sometimes in studying for exams and working on projects. And so it's a little bit different and it takes a little bit of time to get used to, I think. And to be intentional about it is really good. Another thing that I wish I would have known coming into it, this sounds maybe obvious, but the importance of networking, because again, in undergrad, really you just needed a few recommendation letters for something eventually, and while you still need that, you are going to need to find professors and faculty to be your faculty supervisor for your practicum, and you're going to need people to chair your thesis committee and to be on that committee eventually as other members. So really pay attention to the connections that you're making in class. Put that effort in early because it'll make your life a lot easier further down the road when those things start popping up.
And one last thing I think I want to add is just be ready to hit the ground running. There's really no syllabus week in grad school. It's you have readings to do for the first day, and if you don't do them, you're going to be playing catch up all quarter long. So just kind of get organized before classes start and don't let yourself fall behind.
May I add a little follow-up? Are any of you coming from a semester system into a quarter system? How did you find that transition?
I think it's alright. I went to an undergrad where it's semester system, and quarter system really feels a lot faster. So if you think about it, really, there's only about 10 weeks give or take in quarter. And if you think about the exam week and everything, you really just don't have that much freedom in terms of skipping a week, or if you have something that's really important where everything they might come up, you really want to make sure that you're prepared for that and schedule that in. In undergrad, for example, we had a whole week for review and just like what we call that week, but that's just not really a thing in a quarter system. On the other hand, I think one great benefit about quarter system is that like you now have like 3 quarters to learn like all new stuff. So if you're excited about like more stuff to learn, you just have like something better coming each quarter. And even if you hate a class, I think it's great because it's going to be over in a short period of time, right?
So that question, do you mind if I restate, was about extracurricular and specifically service activities that you might do in addition to being a student?
I think there's definitely time for that. I would say no more than like 10 hours, and that's already saying a lot, but that's like the upper limit, I would say, of volunteering time. And I do recommend signing up for like extra classes if you think you have enough time, which is not exactly volunteering, but I think that volunteering really helps like to put some things in practice and also to distract yourself from the stress of grad school. So if you can fit it into your schedule, I would recommend, yeah.
Anyone else want to?
Yeah, I'd say like also if you're looking like, again, what volunteering you do is kind of going to depend on like your interests. So it's a little bit hard to give like specific recommendations. But I will say that like I believe it's every week, like the SPH Insider comes out. And I like in my own experience, I think a lot of people just kind of like don't read that because it's just another email in your inbox, and I totally get it. But there's a lot of like really great volunteer opportunities in there, announcements about classes, and other events going on in public health. So for the folks that want to like get to know people outside of their department, that's a really good resource as well. So I would just say like, just yeah, keep an eye on that, and I found some good volunteering opportunities through that.
In terms of volunteering, that's just engaging with the UW community. There's also like registered student organizations that you can really look up and kind of like, see what interests you. There's a wide variety. So yeah, it's also another opportunity to like help out.
Do you mind if I ask the doctoral students if you have similar or different kind of experience with looking for volunteer? I've heard that there's sometimes different levels of pushback.
I don't know if this counts as volunteering, but as PhD students, we do a lot of committee work, which is unpaid. So it's where there's so many initiatives that are going on in the department, and I know that I'm serve on 2 different committees. I think that that's pretty standard to serve on 1 or 2 for doctoral students.
Right, and we're going to add to it as like, if there's not a committee that you think should be in your department, don't hesitate to contact faculties you trust, or like faculties you think might be interested in starting a committee. There's, like, I think all the departments are great across the school, but some might not be aware that the students really feel like there should be a committee. In Biostatistics, for example, I think last year maybe we started as a faculty-student liaison, where like we voted 2 faculties to have an office hour every week or every other week, just to hear about what's going on among students and what concerns like students may have. And this is really a great add-on, even like in addition to the grad program itself, because oftentimes like, if you have a problem with a graduate program or like the faculty who's running it, it's hard to bring up to them just because of like, the power dynamics. But having like 2 extra advocates for you on the faculty side really helped with a lot of things that was going on in the department.
Thank you. Right here. Oh, sorry.
Me?
Yeah.
I know we talked a little bit about your jobs in terms of RA, TA, but did any of you guys work part-time, full-time outside of the UW system? Or know any of your classmates who did, and sort of how they managed maybe a part-time job outside of school?
Okay, did folks hear that across around? Okay.
So I did, it was still a UW degree program, but a master's program, and I did it fully part-time. And I think that it's definitely doable. It's much more challenging than doing an RA, TA type thing, because you kind of have your own thing going on the side. And I think doing part-time work sometimes is not always part-time, so depending on who your employer is, you just have to be really, really good about setting boundaries, I think is my advice for anyone who's wanting to do part-time work that's outside of the ecosystem.
Yeah, so I was working part-time, like 20 hours a week during the first year of my grad program as a clinical research coordinator, but in terms of just kind of like balancing it out, definitely my course work was only Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and so I had flexibility in that regard, but definitely committing time for grad school and work is definitely a lot of prioritization. That's why you need kind of like a scheduler, you need to really time manage and prioritize academic work as well as your own work. So it's doable though.
Yeah, I definitely recommend if you can to get one of these like RA or TA jobs. The perks are really, really good. You'll probably learn more about it in the union meeting later, but you get like tuition, you get health insurance, you get kind of a stipend on top of that. And it's also, you're working with people in the university, so they're much more flexible and accommodating about your schedule. I think like if you have a big test coming up, they can, shift your hours around. So it takes a lot of effort to get those jobs, but I think it's worth putting in that effort up front, because it'll really pay off in the long run.
Looking towards the back of the room, I see a hand, yellow mask.
What sort of resources do you find most helpful around academic studies or in general, and like where can you access those?
For me, I think it was Odegaard Writing Center. You can request, someone to help you write or research. And at first, I was like, oh, I don't think I need that, but it was really helpful for me to have someone else read it that was, that knows at least a little bit about it. And it's pretty easy to schedule. Just go online, request the specific tutor, and then you get half an hour, but you can request more as well.
I think the most valuable resource is really the people around you right now. You'll see that a lot of times they have answers to your questions, or you'll find yourself that, no one knows the answer. And in that case, I think really all the faculty and staff has been extremely supportive for us over the past year, but it's really the people around you who you'll be working with the most.
In the back towards the,
Do you have any advice on the Practicum and the type about that sooner rather than later?
On the what?
A practicum?
On the Practicum?
this is, Practicum is for MPH students?
Yeah.
Any advice?
So for people in the health systems and population health department, at least, there's a class that you can take that counts as your practicum, which I did, which made it a lot easier because they kind of set you up with an organization and walk you through everything. I think that in doing that class, you do lose a lot of the learning opportunities of reaching out and networking to people, and you're kind of more constricted in what you can actually do. I would say just find something. Well, it depends, because you can either find something that interests you and kind of make sure that that's something that's interesting, or try something new. It's a really great opportunity. I think my best recommendation is just get started on it in kind of by the winter quarter, just so you have the ball rolling.
Yeah, I'll say in EPI, there isn't really like a dedicated class to practicum, but one resource I would highly recommend is Janice North. She is the practicum guru, and so I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had a few ideas of maybe some organizations that I'd like to work with, and so I emailed her, and we set up a meeting and talked through it, and she gave me a bunch of contacts from previous practicums. So I would definitely utilize her as a resource when you start looking.
Save that name, Janice North. Her email is jnorth.
So as far as setting up study groups or having different study strategies, what are some good ways you did that? And then did you have a way of like, that your cohort, that your program would like communicate with each other, like outside of, class?
Yes. So there's a few ways to do it. Again, I think it was different since we were like completely online last year. So everything ended up being online. But Facebook groups ended up getting established pretty quickly. And then FE really gravitated towards Discord. So we have like our own little cohort Discord server, which has been super helpful. And so people have like created little study group chats in there that you can just like join whenever you need to like ask a question about like a particular class, for example, since within your department you'll be taking like the same course as the first year. It helps like if you are like a very social butterfly type person, if you want to set those up, that is excellent. And yeah, I think a lot of it just ended up being online. Yeah.
Yes, in my department we use Slack, so that's also useful. It's basically the same thing as Discord, slightly different. I would say that you can totally go and do like a question type thing, post and say like, oh, who wants to get together? And then you can just agree on the dates. I did definitely do that for PHI 512.
There's also something last year called Learning Communities, which I assume they're doing again this year. I never really participated.
We are not doing that.
Never mind. Just kidding.
Just to add on to what I was saying earlier, like the other thing that I will like throw out there is like eventually like you'll start off with these really big study groups, but like you'll find the people that you kind of click with, and those will kind of be like your core groups, at least in my experience, like throughout the first year. But I know like for me it really helped. Like I was also coming from working, like I'm married, and so like I found people that like wanted to study like during the school day rather than like waiting until the evening. So like taking into consideration like scheduling and things like that is also very helpful and something to consider when you're kind of like forming those groups.
Black
The
and
syllabus says that practicum ranges from 4 to 6 credits. So whether it's a 4, 5 or 6 credit doesn't depend upon the length of the practicum, like how long is the practicum?
Yeah, when you like sign up for your practicum credits, it's just based off how many hours you spend doing it. So I think most is kind of 4 credits, and that's I think 160 or 220 hours. And then if you do a project that takes longer, you just get more credit for it.
I have a similar question regarding thesis as well. It says that thesis credits are anywhere between 9 to 80. So like whether it's a 9 or anywhere between up to 80, like how is that determined? Like what is going to be the total credit for this? How is that going to be determined?
For the thesis?
I think so. Yeah, the 9 to 18.
It was kind of a similar question about the thesis instead of the practicum.
Were you asking about the credits, right?
Yeah.
You're asking about the credits for the theses?
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends a lot on what you want to like determine with your advisor, and you have to talk it through. Sort of like, for example, I did 1 credit prior, like last quarter in spring, and then I'm doing 2 right now, and then I'm doing 7. But you can talk depending on how much you're planning on working each quarter. But also, you can work in the summer of next year and get no credits, and then just like put the credits later. Yeah.
That definitely is a question that I think, in addition to this great advice, you're going to want to negotiate with your advisor. And the reason being that it's a commitment for you and your hours, but it's also a commitment for them and their hours. Like if you're taking that many credits, they are probably going to be checking in with you more often to work on your progress. And that is something that they probably also are going to need to factor in attached to your registration load. So definitely talk to your advisor about that. Okay.
Kind of building off that, I just wanted to ask you guys about how you found sort of making connections, both within the university, maybe finding an advisor for like a thesis or something, as well as maybe, I'm not sure if you guys have had experience sort of reaching outside the university to an organization that maybe doesn't already have a relationship with you that to do like field work, that sort of thing.
I don't know about external organizations, but I can say that for internal UW professors and other academic personnel, you can just reach out to them. I found that, sometimes they won't answer or they'll answer you 2 months later, but one person will definitely answer you. Just not be scared, because I was like scared for the longest time, and I was like, oh, maybe they'll just say no, but most of them are really friendly, even if they can't help you, at least they'll guide you towards someone else.
I would also throw out there, I totally agree. Basically, anyone you talk to, is going to be as helpful as they can. But I would say, what worked for me was just, looking for those people that, clearly, want to mentor and, help out students. So, if it is taking someone, multiple weeks to get back to you, I totally understand it and they're busy, but that might not be, the person that you want to end up working on your thesis with, since you're going to need to be, working with them really closely all the time. So, looking for the folks that do have the time as well as, an important consideration on top of, their area of expertise.
For doctoral students, what would you say the biggest difference, if you did do, a master's program, was between master's and then transitioning to PhD?
So yeah, I did the master's program in biostatistics before the PhD, and I would say the biggest focus is really on kind of research and teaching. The way that it switched. So the master's, it was very much focused on coursework, and I did a thesis, but it was kind of within the last 8 months of the program versus for the PhD, I'm in my second year and I'm already teaching and doing research. So, and we'll be doing that for the foreseeable future until I graduate. So I would say that's the biggest switch, is that you kind of switch from courses to other things.
Yeah, just to add on that, I think another thing you want to be mindful of is that your time is suddenly going to feel very unstructured. And I think that's partly true when you transition from courses-based course to more research-based course, even if you're in a master's program as well. Just that you have a lot of freedom here, and because now you all of a sudden don't have any classes to take that you need to attend. It's all the credits that you signed up with your advisor. So now it's really about there are about 40 hours of work you need to do, but how do I distribute it over the weeks? How should I estimate how much time each task is going to take? That's really one skill, or at least one thing that you need to be mindful of when you were starting your research phase.
Yes.
For MPH thesis, is it more physical research that you do with the professor, or is it more literature synthesis and review?
It really depends a lot on your thesis. I think at the beginning, it's always just a bunch of literature search and analysis, also for the introduction. And some stuff you're gonna definitely do online, but it depends on your type of research. It might be very on hands inside, or just analyzing data.
I'd also say for the master's, you're kind of on that 2-year timeline, so there's not a lot of room for extension. So you usually find a professor that has a data set already, and you just get the data from them, and they'll help you kind of develop your question and work through that analytical process. So there is some literature synthesis, but it's definitely not doing the primary data collection usually. I think there are some options to do that, but again, the timeline's pretty tight, so.
Seattle tip. What's your best Seattle tip?
Get out onto the water as much as you can before the weather turns.
Along those lines, find something that you like to do when it's not nice outside. So either a hobby or somewhere that you like to go that's indoors. I know it's difficult during COVID, or if you don't mind the rain, figuring out some activity that you like to do, because the winter months can get a little bit dreary.
Don't use an umbrella.
But get a really good rain jacket though.
Well, the base Patagonia.
Probably waterproof shoes too, if we're being serious.
me personally, it was just going through Zoom the first year.
Is your favorite part?
No, it was my least favorite part. Because that was kind of tough, and obviously due to the pandemic, that was just, and what it is. I feel like a takeaway from it was that being able to meet with people virtually and have that be okay, like setting up time just to meet and prioritizing that was really effective. But yeah, I guess Zoom is helpful in some sense.
I think just being surrounded by people who are very like-minded and interested in the same topics, it's not something that I personally experienced in undergrad, and here I am, and I know all my peers are, we're not interested in the same exact parts of healthcare policy, but just hearing everyone's different perspectives is really interesting, and a lot of the classes are really great for letting people kind of express their opinions and share ideas.
I'll also add, I think I really like how responsive the staff and faculty are to student opinions and student concerns. I was also here at UW as an undergrad back in 2018, and I've noticed that that's a big change since coming back. Everyone really wants your opinion and your thoughts on things, and they are actually taken into consideration.
I guess I would echo that. Oh, did you call it? No, so sorry. I would say that as well. This is my third degree program in the School of Public Health at UW, and clearly I keep coming back because it's just a really great place to be. So I think there's something special about the school and the people that are in it. So I would definitely recommend taking advantage of getting to know people across the different departments and being involved with the school. It's a pretty great place.
You all have this really great opportunity because at the end of our orientation events, the host just ended the meeting, and that was kind of, we wouldn't see each other until class or the next meeting. Now you have the chance to kind of stand around outside and talk and get to know each other, so I'm kind of jealous of you for having that.
And don't forget about student discounts, get all of those.
Yes, in the back.
What's your favorite place to go and study in the university?
So we're not law students, at least maybe some of you are doing a dual program, but the law library is open to all students. It's across from the Packard building up on North Campus, and it is a beautiful library to study in, and it's quiet all the time. It's really, really nice.
I will also add, so the libraries here are amazing. So yes, the law library, also Suzlo Library is very beautiful. If you're one of those people that really likes quiet, the big Harry Potter room upstairs is very silent. If you're doing more collaborative work, Odegard is great. And then out on the Ave, Cafe on the Ave and Cafe Solstice, top notch.
So just so you know, that may have been a little bit of a ringer question because a lot of folks haven't studied here in person because we were remote last year.
Yeah.
But those of you who've been here for a bit, thank you for that. There was a question that the panel sort of thought might be relevant to a few of you, which is specifically for international students. Any questions about OPT, CPT, anyone interested in that? Because, it's great to, this is for international students who are either going to do curricular training or professional training. They're processes and they're long and they're involved. Anyone interested? We can probably do a quick. No one's interested. Okay.
And what is this CPT?
CPT?
I don't know exactly what it means, what each letter means, because my CPT is called something else. But basically, it's an authorization that you need to get in order to work either paid or unpaid during your J1 or your F1 visa.
And the difference between, I'll just sort of say, because I know a little bit about this, CPT is usually during your program, curricular. OPT is usually after your program. So it would be after you've completed the degree and or your degree is about to be posted, you're applying for OPT. and they're both training.
Yeah, I'll publish our J1 in case it's called pre-academic training and post-academic training.
For those of you who've been studying on campus, where's your favorite like cheap places to eat? Like where do you go with 6 bucks?
I actually did a tour on that. So Fives does those types of tours sometimes, so you can sign up to them. And there's a few places, but most of them are not like super cheap. They're like $10 around-ish. So there's Banh Mi, pretty close to H Mart, and that's around $6. Depends also on your tastes. There's Chipotle, which is not really Mexican, but it's okay. There's Cafe on the App, some options, and a lot of people really like Cafe on the App. And there's some full options that are around just $10, but you can definitely just go and like look at the menus. They're normally outside and figure out what you like more.
If you're on campus and you want food, down by the Health Sciences building, there's I think it's still called the Rotunda Cafe, and you can get some good food there. And it's within the academic building, so if you're, in between classes and running around, it's a nice option.
Yeah, right next to the Rotunda in the water, there's a new bakery that just opened up. It's called St. Bread. That's pretty good. And then right there is Agua Verde, which is pretty good. Nice restaurant, at least in my opinion. But yeah.
For any of you that have studied on campus, what about any recommendations in terms of commute? Obviously, we all have unique situations in terms of how to get to campus, but is any tips on if you're driving, if you're biking, if you're busing?
So on October 2nd, I believe the 3 light rail stations are going to be opening on Roosevelt, U District, and Northgate. So along those lines, it might be easier to go on the light rail to the Husky Stadium, so you know health sciences. Yeah, that's all I know at the moment.
The light rail station at the Husky station is going to be the closest to the health science building. And when it opens, the one at the UW Tower will be closest to the Hampshire Hospital building. Also, that will be walking downhill, and the other one will be walking sort of flat grade.
I was also going to add for those of you who are planning to bike to campus, if you can, use the Practicum Trail, because Seattle's pretty well known for its hills, and that is like intended to be used by people biking and running, so it's fairly flat.
Any drivers on the panel?
If you can avoid driving, it's pretty expensive to park on campus. If you do have to drive, sometimes you can find, I've a lot of times had to drive just kind of in a short time crunch. There's parking on the Ave, University Ave, that you can get like 2-hour parking, sometimes on 15th. And also, actually, you can find some great parking north of 45th. So that's all free street parking if you're in a time crunch.
I haven't really driven to school long term, but I would add that like if some of you are in a situation that you do live kind of far away, say if you're not really for Seattle and you do have to come in for certain days you have school, you should consult the website, or like they do have like student parking you can purchase, where like you can basically park in a huge parking lot near IMA, and I think that costs maybe $67 per day, and a little bit cheaper if you buy a 4-year pass. If you have other options, I would add that like driving to campus is sort of a costly option that might not be the most convenient. But if you do want to commute, I think looking into that might be helpful.
For those who bike, would you recommend looking into the bike houses or the racks for like security?
Wait, can you repeat it? I'm sorry.
If you bike to campus, would you recommend using a bike house or are the racks like securing them for being in class all day?
So the question was about options for parking your bike using the bike houses versus the bike racks.
Honestly, I think it depends on how nice your bike is. If you were a really nice bike, I would definitely go with the houses. My bike is like 10 years old, and so I just
wherever there's a place to walk.
PSA, the University of Washington occasionally finds bikes that are not sort of like tagged, and they have a bike auction through the UW surplus on the 24th or the 25th. So if you hit UW surplus, I think that you'll find a link. They have preview day, and if you're looking for a bike, I think they're usable bikes. Usually they have usable bikes. So if you're looking for a bike.
Another quick PSA, at least they used to have this program a few years ago, but I'm pretty sure there's a way to like register your bike with UW so that if it does get stolen and it is like recovered or like found somewhere on campus, they can try and return it to you. So if you are going to be bringing the bike, that's an option.
And if you don't, your bike is going to be auctioned away or something. Yeah.
If you moved from out of state, did you change your residency to Washington State? And why? And if you like started as a master's and were hoping to continue to a PhD, did that change your decision in terms of the state issue?
I think every situation is different, but I do know that getting residency in Washington State is very difficult, and the time that you spend here as a full-time student does not count towards establishing residency.
Did folks get that question? It basically has to do with your tuition rate. So for the state-funded programs, not including programs like the MHA, the MHIHIM, COPHP, I think those are most of them. There's a differential because this is a public institution. So if you're not a resident, you pay a non-resident tuition rate.
Can you talk a bit about like your experiences that come with like your Husky Card, such as the fitness centers or like water activities or things that you can do like on or around campus?
I mean, I think, again, we had a very limited first year just because everything was closed for us. I know you can use your Husky Card as an Orca pass, so that's for the light rail and for the buses. So buses are actually pretty good in Seattle. It's a good way to get to campus. There's a really good gym facility. There's a pool. There's weight room. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff there. You need your ID card to get into a lot of buildings. I don't know what else. It's like cheap boat rental.
Yeah, I was gonna say I definitely recommend the gym. It's definitely a better option than like getting it if you want to have a gym membership. Like I wouldn't go somewhere else. I would go to the IMA. It's pretty great facilities and it has pretty much everything that you would be getting in another gym.
There's also the Hub, which is like the student center, and there's bowling that you can bowl for like $4 a game or something with your student ID, so a lot cheaper than other places.
There's a lot of student discounts along the university have in terms of restaurants where you just show them the ID, you get like 10% off. So,
I'm just going to parrot everything they said because none of those things are free. You already paid for them. It's rolled into your tuition. So if you paid for it, you might as well take advantage of it.
If you're a student and an employee, so like a student and you have a TA, does the Husky Card still work as an Orca card? Okay.
Yeah, if you're a student employee, you get like tuition waiver. You still have to pay like a couple $100s for random fees every quarter, but you get all of the perks of being a student still.
We have roughly 5 more minutes if you have any sort of final questions for...
I'd like to ask about sport activities. Do you use it kind of for them and volunteering? For example, with Husky Card, help to visit it?
So the question was it about on-campus sporting activities or Seattle?
Yes.
Does the Husky Card help with admission and/or discounted prices? Is that it?
Depends on which sporting event you're looking to go to. I want to say at one point basketball and volleyball games were free or very inexpensive for people with a student ID. If you want to go to football games, those you actually have to pay for. And I think probably some of the other sports you can also get reduced admission with that Husky Card.
And they are having them again this year. A lot of them were sort of abbreviated seasons last year or pretty much canceled altogether, but they are having them. Vaccine passports are going to be required for those at sporting events at this point.
It's more of a just wanting to know more about you folks. Like, what do you plan on doing after you finish your degree? Do you have
Well, it really depends. For me, I think I'm really trying to get into the PhD. For that, you have to talk to a lot of your professors. So if you're interested in that, just start looking early so that, because basically after the first year, you already have to start thinking about applying and getting everything ready. But you can also do a whole bunch of other stuff.
I want to add that, like, for folks who are trying to find a job after graduation, it's pretty common for people to secure a summer internship the summer before you enter last year, just so that oftentimes it not only comes with like an option to return to the company you're working at, which if it works out, that would be great, but also like it's a really good opportunity for you to just get an idea of what working at certain sectors will be like. So that's always one option. And the other one I just want to add is that, like, feel free to reach out to people who graduated from your program. Your alumni is definitely a very strong resources that's there for you to grab. I personally reach out to a lot of alumni across different sectors, either on like LinkedIn or even directly email them. Again, not all of them are going to respond, but most of the people I've tried to make a connection with eventually responded, and they're very receptive to making a connection. So I want to say that definitely don't feel like you really need to be someone for them to get back to you or seek for opportunities. They're definitely a very key to success if you want to secure an opportunity that seems like far out there.
Yeah, I think grad school gives you the opportunity to explore different career options, and you mentioned with LinkedIn and professional networking, it's super important to reach out to alumni. But as a student, being able just to reach out to anyone and say, hey, I'm a student, I want to learn more about what you're doing, to your expertise and career path, and more than willing that people are going to help out. And so really, taking the initiative and really reaching out to people that you think you want to be in terms of their field. Super helpful.
Anyone else want to share your post-grad sort of aspirations?
I'm also trying to get my PhD afterwards, so fingers crossed.
Well, you all have been wonderful. Please join me in thanking our panelists. This is what you all, I think you all have started forming those relationships with each other, and certainly the students who are returning are a wealth of information. Even if their experience is going to be very different than yours, about professors, about classes, about navigating this whole process. So please do continue to reach out to them, as well as alumni, as well as your faculty and your staff. They're great. We love to talk about stuff and give advice that you may or may not take. I'm gonna recommend that we take like a short stretch, bathroom, water break. And then for folks who would like to join the walk to HRC, and we'll meet outside in about 10 minutes or 10. That work? Okay, thank you all.